Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me is Mike Warner. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great, especially after your little spark there. It reminded me of like a Lil Wayne song before he sparks the blunt and sings whatever, raps whatever song he's about to do. It's pretty funny.
Thanks. We have a special guest. It is Dave McDonald from Rotosaurus and the High Stakes Heat podcast. Before I let Dave talk, though, he's such a special guest, I prepared something special for him.
Fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland. Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.
Dave, welcome to the show.
Oh my God. I fucking love that video so much. Oh, both of them. Probably watched them like 100 times each. Definitely true. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you will die. I don't know what our economy is based on now that LeBron James is gone. Not much, I guess, would be the answer.
I told you I'd have it ready for you.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was ready for it.
Dave, remind everybody where you can reach on Twitter and plug everything that you do.
That would be at RunDMcD. Make sure to add that D. And Rotosaurus.com, High Stakes Heat, although neither have had anything done to them in a long time. So I'm hoping to change that soon, though. Unfortunately, we've had some I've been sick, and my podcast partner, his son, has been sick. So hopefully moving forward, we'll get going. But it's been a rough start to the season.
Well, I hope that video I just played just brightens it up just a little bit.
It does for sure.
We're going to talk about some rough things going on this season, including a bunch of struggling pitchers that are hurting a lot of fantasy owners right now. But before we do that, let's just jump into news. Kind of the big news going on right now is that Jacob deGrom came off the IL on Sunday only to pull himself from his start. He threw 2 warm-up pitches in the 6th inning and pulled himself out of the game. They placed him on the IL today. Dave, I know you weren't the biggest of DeGrom fans, not because of his talent, but because you were worried about things like this and injuries with him. What are your thoughts moving forward on DeGrom?
Yeah, it's complicated, right? Because I've said all along he's the best pitcher in baseball, but I also, I say that there's a lot of factors to take into account, and sometimes it doesn't matter that you're the best. And it was the same reason that I was on Bieber over Verlander last year. It's like, yes, Verlander at his peak might be a little bit better, but like, is that little bit of skill difference worth the added risk? And I know that, DeGrom was not nearly the risk that Verlander was last year, but I still saw more risk than I think other people did. He's had a number of ticky-tack injuries over the last couple of years. I actually tweeted about this before the season of why I wouldn't take him in the first round. And I got a lot of negative response to that. But I get it. People love DeGrom. He's the GOAT. He's such a good pitcher that people want to ignore the health risk there, but it's there. He's 33 years old. As you might know, you don't get healthier as you get older.
How dare you?
I know.
I'm in the prime of my life right now.
I wish that were the case, but alas, I found myself getting less healthy, not more healthy. But he's just had so many little things, and I don't know if this is, he's had a couple of back injuries last couple of years, like where he's missed a start here and there. I don't know if this is related to that. I was kind of talking to Derek Rhodes about that, but when you constantly have to overcompensate for things, sometimes other parts of your body then break down as a result. So I think maybe that could be it. But yeah, I tweeted out that I thought that they were rushing him back, and it turns out that I think that was probably right. And a doctor that I follow, Dr. Jesse Morse, who's a really good fantasy doctor. If you're not following him, you should be. Really good with breaking the stuff down. But he was talking about why he thought it would be a mistake to bring him back so quickly. And I hope that they avoided some serious injury with him. But I don't know. I think they should have been cautious with their ace.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you in terms of that. I think they just brought him back too soon. And we see this all the time with side injuries, right? Sides where the oblique is.
Right.
And we see this, guys try to rush back and then get re-injured or re-aggravate. It doesn't seem like it's super serious, so I'm not super worried. You and I disagree on what DeGrom's injury was heading into the season. You may be right. I may have been wrong. But I still think that he's going to be fine, rest of the way. And hopefully the Mets take their time, especially with Carrasco coming back here in the near future. There's no reason for them to risk the face of their franchise, or one of the faces of that franchise in DeGrom. Mike, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much touched everything. He's, in my opinion, the best pitcher in baseball. I agree he was rushed back. There's really no great alternatives to grab. A few guys that I like, that are lower end of the spectrum. Luis Garcia, he was pretty solid today in his outing. He's had 4 pretty decent starts in a row. Logan Webb has some nice K to walk ratio in the early going that I'm kind of tantalized by. But outside of a few guys that you can grab that are lower end to kind of help supplement your rotation until he comes back, I'm hoping that they give him a few weeks. But I'm also not a doctor. We'll see how long it takes for him to return and everything. But overall, I wasn't really concerned about him prior to the season either. He has only really been on the DL or IL for a couple of days since 2014, and he's somebody that has amassed over 200 innings 3 years in a row prior to 2020. He threw almost 70 innings last year. So there was really no cause for concern coming into this season. And he's had some slight nicks here and there, but nothing substantial. Sure, that can change in the blink of an eye, but I wouldn't be overly concerned right now based on what we've seen.
Cabrera Hayes has been moved from the 10-day IL to the 60-day IL, which sucks, I think, for everybody on this podcast, because I think we're all overly invested in Hayes, especially Dave, but me as well. I think I've got him in 8 or 10 leagues, something like that. So this is it's been brutal, especially for my TGFBI team that also just can't stay healthy outside of him. But Mike, are you concerned about this move, or do you think it's just they're taking their time with him?
I expected him to be out until about June anyways, and now I don't think it really changes things. I think it was more of a roster crunch situation, but the Pirates offense is about as bad as it gets, and it would be nice to have Hayes out there, but if you have rostered him this long, then I wouldn't really be changing your outlook. I would expect him to be back around mid-June-ish. I don't love the fact that, it's a wrist injury, for power purposes and stuff like that. Although there has been research that suggests that doesn't necessarily hamper you as much as we seem to think it does. But either way, Hayes is going to be more of a late second round play for this season, like more of a, August, September type guy that hopefully can, provide what we thought we would get from him for an entire season. I'm very high on Hayes as well. I have him in multiple spots. I pretty much have chalked this season up to hoping that I get a couple of good months out of him. If you're kind of waiting in the wings and you only have a limited amount of IL spots, then I think he's definitely somebody that you could have cut a while ago, but you can now as well if you're, trying to make some moves in the early going here. But I still don't think that his, diagnosis is changed from the beginning. I think we're still going to see him in the mid-June area.
Yeah, this is starting to feel a little bit, and for completely different reasons, but like Garrett Hampson in 2019 when he, everybody started really buying into the hype during draft season. Then he didn't perform. His was performance, obviously not injury. And then he caught on fire in September. We still had to pay full freight the next year. Right. I feel like this is going to be a situation like that with Hayes. Dave, I know you're a big Hayes guy. You and I battled over him in a number of drafts this year. Are you worried about this at all?
Yeah, that's the thing. It feels like maybe this was their plan all along, and maybe because they're not competitive, they're not trying to rush him back or whatever. But all of the reports have been positive for weeks, and it's oh yeah, he's so close. I thought I might have him back like 3 weeks ago. And now that they're putting him to the 60-day IL after they're saying like he's looking strong, swinging the bat in the batting cage, and it feels like, did you guys really have this plan all along where you just were gonna, play it safe with him and not bring him back sooner? Because Mike's talking about cutting him. If I had known from the get up that he'd be out for 2 months, yeah, maybe I would have cut him 2 months ago. But then they're stringing you along, and now it's like, well, it's another 3 weeks. It's like I can't cut him now, especially because I play a lot of 15s, and your replacement value is nothing close to Brian Hayes. Like, if I'm going to be getting a good June, July, August, September from him, I have to just keep holding him. I can't. I'm a really big fan. I think he's going to be really good, and it's just disappointing.
Yeah, this is like the Pirates are the worst girlfriend I've ever had. Just stringing me along.
Exactly.
I mean,
I was thinking that in my head. I was like, that's corny. No, I'm not going to say it.
No, but I went there.
I mean, let's just get down to it, right? Like, let's go.
And although the cut point, like if you were going to cut him, you likely would be in a 12-team league. You would have cut him already, more than likely, if you had limited spots. So in a 15-team format, you might as well keep it. If you've held on to him this long, you definitely should. I have him in one 15-team league, and I'm going to keep him. I have him in a 30-team league. I'm definitely going to keep him there, obviously. But
I'm holding him even in 12 still. I have him in Fantrax 12s that I still have.
Well, it depends. If I have it depends on the situation. Yeah. I have some leagues that play. Well, I have one league that has 3 IL spots, so I only am holding guys that are like the top of the top. And if it's a redraft league, it's different if it's a keeper league. If you have 3 IL spots in a keeper league, I'd probably drop out. But in terms of a redraft league with 3 IL spots, I think Hayes is a guy that, you drop and you could get back easily sometime in the next 2 months or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I've got him in TGFBI, where I also have Anthony Rendon, George Springer, Framber Valdez, and Jared Colettick. We're going to get to Colettick here in a minute because he's coming up.
Rendon was some bad luck, man. Just hit his freaking knee on a random pitch, like right when he comes back from the IL. I was more mad about him than a lot of people.
He always misses time randomly. Like that guy never has.
But it's built into the price, which is why it's so tantalizing. But it's at the same time, especially in NFBC format, it's so frustrating when, thankfully I lucked into Evan Longoria early to kind of take the place of Hayes when he went down, but not everybody found that same kind of luck and have been trying to fill the gaps with Phillip Ervin and whoever else. Trevor Larnach makes his debut because Alex Kirilloff hits the IL himself, re-injuring that wrist that he had hurt in 2019. Mike, any thoughts on Larnach? Is he a guy that people should be running to the wire to pick up?
Not me for now. I'm somebody that likes him more long-term than I do short-term. I'm not the biggest fan. He's just never been somebody that I've really, dove to in keeper dynasty leagues. I'm not as sold on his power, and I'm also not really sold on the bat as much either. So, for me, I'm just not a big Larnach guy. And a lot of guys in keeper dynasty usually take him a round or two, actually typically 3 or 4 rounds ahead of where I would be comfortable taking him. With that said, it's worth speculating on, especially if you're in a league where it's not even waiver wire. You can just pick up guys off the wire or whatever to see how he does in a short stint. But I don't think he'll be up long term. If he is,
he might be.
I don't know. If he is, then I honestly think that's probably worse because there's a potential that I think there's a pretty good potential that he struggles a fair amount for this season. So I'm just not a big Larnach guy myself. He's gonna have to show me, some tangible changes with, his approach and the way that he, goes about it before I'm bought in. So for me, I'm out on him, but I know a lot of guys will be in. So I'm kind of hoping that, they spend a lot of fab and such.
I picked him up this week in one of my main events. I think in another league as well. Dave, was this a guy you would pick up?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Kirilloff and Byron Buxton out for what seems like. It doesn't seem like they're both going to be back within the next month, maybe even not the next 6 weeks. So I don't know. I think he's got an opportunity to establish himself, and he's not just some guy that they brought up. He's a former first-round pick. There's a lot of people out there talking about how he is a really good bat. It's kind of weird because we don't have 2020 minor league stats to look at, right? Like we're kind of looking at 2019, and then obviously he did something last year, but we don't know what. But I mean, there was a lot of talk about him in the not a lot, but there was, obviously Kirilloff got a lot of that, but there's people saying, Larnack is worth drafting as well in deeper formats. I mean, draft champions and such, because he'll probably be up at some point this year, and I think he's a part of their future, and I think he can establish himself. So yeah, I spent some money on him. Like I said, when we're talking about deep leagues, your options are limited, especially in outfield this year. It's been pretty shallow. It's really been brutal. There's been so many injuries. And it seems like they've been converting a lot of guys, like Phillip Evans, you mentioned earlier, like third base. Now he's playing outfield. Like there's just been a lot of guys that they've had to move around and everything. And I took a shot. I have holes that I'm waiting for guys to come back, and I need a guy who could potentially be an impact player, and I'm hoping it's him. A lot of people think he can be. So I don't have any inside information other than what's out there, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping as well. And I think the big thing you mentioned is it has been brutal in the outfield this year. Outfield's typically one of our deeper positions to pull from. I mean, the amount of injuries we've seen on the hitter side has been extremely strange. You add in the fact that because most sites, almost every single site this year, dropped down their eligibility requirements, that so many guys had multi-positional eligibility, it pulls guys out of individual pools. So, because people will bump out some of those guys that are outfield, infield eligible, and draft them a little bit earlier than maybe they would have gone in a traditional year if they had only been eligible at one position. It just made the whole pool a little bit shallower. I like Larnach. I think he's gonna. Is it Larnach? Larnach. I don't know.
I think it's Larnach, but I don't know.
I thought it was Larnach, but I don't know.
I'm gonna go with you guys. Say it's Larnach, and then I'll look it up in my pronunciation guide that I got. I probably should have done that before the podcast, but I think he's got legit power. I think he's got a decent enough hit tool to unlock that. His contact rates in the minor leagues have been pretty good, and I mean, small sample. Hit 2 home runs in just 3 games AAA to start the season. I wasn't down there very long. I think he's going to be fine. Right now, they're hitting him 5th in a strong side platoon, and that's a pretty decent lineup to be hitting 5th in. So I think that
he in the game that they didn't end up playing that got postponed, it was against the lefty, and they had him batting 9th. So he might not be hitting 5th like all the time.
But that's still playing against the lefty.
Sure.
That's better. I'd rather him not sit and it hit 9th against a lefty than sit versus lefties.
Right.
So
no, I get the hype, and I mean a lot of people are really positive on him. I'm positive long term on him. I like Lark. I'm making it sound like I'm shitting on him just for this season. I think that and
it's fine. You hate him. We know. We get it.
I really don't. I really don't. It's just I do think that he's going to struggle with some contact once he gets to the big leagues. We saw some. He was amazing with contact rate at the beginning of his minor league career. And then we saw as he went through, especially in the high minors, we started to see 27% and such in terms of strikeout rate and his power. While I deem it great, I think that at his peak he's probably like a 28 to 33 home run guy. I don't think we're going to see that this year. So that's kind of where I'm standing with him now. Again, long term, I like him a lot. I just want to kind of clarify because I made it sound like I'm just shitting on the dude.
Yeah, no, we know you hate him. Joey Votto hits the IL. He's going to be out for at least a month with a broken thumb. Obviously, unless you can stash him and you want to stash him, if you don't have too many other stashes, you can if you got an IL. But in leagues where your ILs are filled, or you're playing in a league without an IL like NFBC, you're obviously probably just moving on from Votto. My question really is less about Votto and more about what the Reds do, because the Reds have a lot of pieces that aren't able to get full-time playing time because they've got a lot of pieces. So, Dave, is there anybody in particular you're really interested in on this Reds team emerging now that there's an extra spot open?
Oh, well, that wasn't on the show notes. I didn't even think about this.
Boom, be ready, baby.
Keep on your toes.
Let's see, yeah. Honestly, I mean, so they're basically, it looks like they're just moving Moustakas to first, and they're playing Suarez at third now because they realize that he can't play short for shit. Kyle Farmer is playing shortstop, and I have no interest in him. So, I mean, unless someone else emerges, unless they can find some playing time for, Mark Payton, I guess would be kind of interesting. But Not really, honestly. There's nothing that strikes me right now, but I guess I'll listen to what you guys have to say.
Mike, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that Jonathan India gets more playing time. Like I would prefer to see more India because I have him in multiple deep league spots, and I think that once he gets more playing time and is able to kind of establish himself more than 3-4 days a week, that we could see him develop more in terms of his tools and a little bit more in the power as well. Like I'm looking at their lineup right now. Like I don't think.
I mean, they give most of a whole month already. He was there playing pretty regularly until the 26th, I think.
Yeah, they're definitely going to go with Mustakas or continue with him at first base, and with Suarez at third. That's fine. I'm just hoping that we see more India. I know Akiyama just came back, so I'm sure that he will kind of swindle himself in. This might hurt some of the outfield a little bit if they decide to kind of move somebody from the outfield to the infield. But I don't think this helps particularly one person. India, I would hope, gets, instead of 3 days a week, maybe 5-ish. Potentially, depending on the platoon switches and stuff like that. But, Suarez is going to play full-time. Castellanos is going to play full-time. Winker's going to play full-time. Mustakas is going to play full-time. More than likely, Senzel will play full-time, barring injury. So really that leaves somebody like Naquin, possibly, seeing the bench at times. Farmer, obviously, could see the bench, multiple times if they want to throw Suarez back over at shortstop. So I think this is just going to be kind of a mixed bag, depending on the day. Really. So like, I don't really have an answer of who gets a big step up out with Votto going on the D or on the IL. But I do think that, potentially this could help, hopefully, my guy India a little bit.
Yeah. My hope is it's actually going to help Tyler Stevenson. And now, I mean, if they do decide to play Mustakas at first base more or full time, then it probably doesn't help him. But anyway, they can get his bat into the lineup because his bat is legit and he's catcher eligible, obviously, because he's a catcher. But he has played a fair amount of first. He's hitting over 300 so far this year. And yes, it is a very limited sample because he's short side platooning at the catcher position. But my hope is that it will open up some time for Tyler Stevenson. I think it'll help everybody get a little bit more playing time. Senzel gets a little bit more playing time because they're going to play him at second. Guys like India will get in a little bit more. Guys like Akiyama will get in a little bit more. But if they could just find a way to get fucking Tyler Stevenson on the field more often, I think it would be beneficial to their offense.
Do they have the AL game soon? If they do, then that would be nice.
No, they just played Cleveland.
Yeah,
that's how Wade Miley no-hit them.
Fun times.
And Stevenson caught his last 2 games that he's played has been catching. So, I don't know. I would love if Stevenson played first base. I have Stevenson in a ton of places.
They haven't played him there yet this year.
No, they haven't. That's what I was looking at.
Before he got injured, they only sat Votto 1 game, and Alex Blandino got to start at first that game. So I don't know.
Don't Stanford product.
I'm not seeing them playing Stevenson there, but it would be a good thought. But it doesn't look like it's happening.
I don't think there's any chance he plays first base. In my opinion, I would doubt it.
All right. Well, you guys make me sad. I'm just gonna.
It's making me sad. You asked us like a really hard question to answer. Like, how the hell? We're praying for Stevenson.
You didn't even put it on the damn sheet of what we should look over before the pod started.
Be ready. You're lucky I gave you a sheet. I don't get a sheet.
What are sheets?
You're the one talking, though.
That's how it rolls. Jared Colettick is coming up. There was a report this morning that he was coming up today. It was from a Twitter account with 31 Twitter followers, and people fell for it. And the Mariners apparently fell for it too because they're going to bring him up after seeing that on Thursday. I'm super excited. I've got lots of shares of Colettick, and I'm in dire need of his assistance on my fantasy teams. Dave, what are your thoughts on Colettick moving forward after? Top prospect coming up.
It's obviously exciting for people who have him. I have 0 shares, so I am not excited at all. I was hoping for his counterpart on the same team, Logan Gilbert, to be called up. I'm waiting patiently or impatiently on him for the call, but
he's got to be coming next.
You have to think like Seattle doesn't suck, so like you'd think that they actually should be motivated to bring up their talent and not be pitching shitty guys out there, but yet there they are. There's Justin Dunn. But you know, I don't know. Colettick is great. He's a huge talent. He's gonna be awesome. Dual threat, home run, steals. You know, he'll people who bought him in the draft will be pretty happy with it, I'm sure. I'm hoping he sucks personally because I don't have any.
Well, screw you, buddy. Mike, do you have any Colettick, and are you excited for him to come up, and what do you expect?
I have 2 shares of Colettick, and I'm super excited for him to come up. He is one of the guys that I legitimately think can come up from the minor leagues and perform at a extremely high level. I think the power is a little bit better than the speed, but I think he's a 2020 candidate as soon as this season with the amount of time that's left. With that said, what the caveat with all prospects is Mike Trout was dog shit in his first exposure to the major leagues. So like you have to really, take it as it is and hope that prospects are kind of ready to contribute as soon as they come up. As many times as somebody like Mike Trout might have struggled when he started, somebody, awful like Gordon Beckham might have done well, or Brett Lowry could have done well as soon as they came up. So with Colettick, I'm expecting a lot, and I think that he will perform very highly. But, he's a rookie. It's going to be something that, we're going to have to kind of go with the ebbs and flows of the season and hope that he can remain somewhat consistent. But I will say that Colettick, in terms of my eyes, is probably the best offensive prospect I've seen come up in quite some time. I don't have like an exact date or anything or year off the top of my head, but he's one of those like really just generationally talented offensive players that I think could be a first rounder in fantasy for the foreseeable future. So, he's a true difference making prospect. If there's somebody listening out here that plays in like a 10-team league and doesn't really know much about prospects or whatever, like Colettick is the guy that you want to like bring up and put on your team in a 10-team or even an 8-team format.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's a legit 2020 guy.
Yeah.
And potentially could even do that in his first, go around here. Obviously you expect guys to have some struggles, but we've also seen a number of guys come up and be fantastic right from the jump. I think he has the potential to do it. 100% home run to fly ball rate so far in the minor leagues this year. I hear that.
That's good. I hear.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. He's hitting
like 15. So I mean,
hitting 444 in AAA so far to start the year. He's going to be fantastic, and I'm super excited.
Appearances.
Yeah, I love small samples because you get to just throw out random shit like that. I used to do an article over on Fangraphs where it was just messing around with small sample sizes just to like show you how insane some guys have like over the course of 2-3 week spans.
Who also is going to be excited that Colettick is coming up is our buddy Michael Simeone. Huge Mets fan. I think he was a really big fan of that trade that sent Colettick to the Mariners. For the corpse of Robinson Cano.
Yeah. Along with the aforementioned Justin Dunn.
Yes.
It's part of that deal as well. Last piece of news before we get into some struggling starters is CJ Cron hits the IL. And, oh, my God, did I just shoot myself in the foot? I was telling these guys before he started rolling. Literally made a trade today to trade Nate Lowe to Ian Kahn, my good buddy, in a multiplayer deal. And then Cron goes on the IL, and now I have no first baseman this week. So fantastic move, Mason. You're really cream of the crop right there. It's super disappointing. 7 games this week in Coors. So are you worried about CJ Cron here, Mike? And then are you picking up Matt Adams?
I'm slightly worried about Cron because just because I don't love back issues, and especially for power hitters. With that said, I'm going to have, I'm going to keep an optimistic point of view when it comes to him, just because I'm so invested in Cron. I mean, I have him in, I think, like 70% of my league. So I'm pretty highly invested here, and I'm really hoping that he continues the pace that he's been at. I know at the very beginning of the year, like the first couple of weeks, even the leagues that I didn't draft Cron in, like 12-team leagues that I play in, he was dropped, and I was able to pick him up there, and he's just performed extremely well. And I mean, 95th percentile in max exit velocity, 75th percentile in barrel rate. Really, the only question is what is going on in terms of his back and whether that's going to be a long-term issue. I don't think it will be, based on kind of the reports that I've seen. With that said, like I I by no means try and predict what happens with injuries. So I'm going to hope for the best. Matt Adams is not really somebody that I would love to pick up, but he's going to be probably playing a fair amount, at least on the strong side of a platoon at first base in Colorado. So, I mean, yeah, like he's worth a play for at least the next, couple weeks while Crone is out. And he might be somewhat productive. He's not really the type of guy that has like mammoth power or anything. And he's somebody that's kind of floated around, especially the last few years after being a somewhat highly regarded prospect with the Cardinals years and years ago. But Adams is a decent fill-in, more for like NL only formats while we wait for him for Crone. But Crone is like a legit, top 7-ish first baseman the rest of the way, barring his health.
Yeah, I was not in on Crone to the extent that other people were once he signed in Colorado. People were paying just absurd prices for him, but it's been great so far. I don't think this one is super troubling because they didn't put him on the IL right away, so I don't necessarily think that they're thinking this is going to be a long-term issue. If someone does drop him in your league, you have to go and swoop him. Make room on your reserve list. Where are you at with Crone there, Dave?
Yeah, I have several Crone shares as well. Back injuries are tricky. I myself have suffered from a back injury for a long time now. They're horrible because they affect everything, from even just walking and running to swinging a bat. It affects all facets. But from what I've seen at the major league level with the kind of care that they get, they usually give you like some, cortisone shots or whatever. Other than Yelich, who's been out with the back injury for a while now, the thing is they're persistent. Like I could see this being something that affects him later in the season. I don't see this holding him out for a long period of time right now. So I think he'll probably have a minimum stay and then be back, hopefully. It just really sucks because it's happening the week that he has a 7-game week in Coors. As for Matt Adams, I don't have any interest. They're playing Connor Joe there too. They're splitting the time between both of them, and it's not like a strong side, weak side platoon situation. They're playing them just kind of randomly whenever they feel like it. So I don't know. I don't think either of them are going to play enough while Crone is out to be worthwhile picking up, even playing in Coors.
Yeah. Let's talk about some struggling pitchers. We're going to answer most of the questions that people are asking in the stream at the end. So keep asking the questions, guys and gals. But you're going to have to wait a little bit. I want to get through the topics. The one question we will discuss real quick is because it ties in with our first pitcher, which is Luis Castillo. And so someone asked, someone offered me Cedric Mullins for Luis Castillo. Should I do it? So, Dave, answer the question and then talk about how you're feeling about Luis Castillo.
Oh, God. That's a tough one.
Wow.
It shouldn't be. I know.
It shouldn't be because I'm the biggest Cedric Mullins fan in the world. We all know this. Yeah. I've got a picture of him tattooed on my back. I can't show you because I've got to face the camera, but I'm not doing that trade. I just traded for Luis Castillo in a league.
Yeah, no, and now is a good time to buy low, but at the same time, while I am confident somewhat in Castillo coming back, it's not 100% for me. He wasn't. I have 0 shares of Castillo, so I had to do some research. He gets drafted as an ace, but he doesn't give me the whip that I want from an ace, and for me that's an issue. When it comes to the rate, the rate stats, I want to make sure I'm getting ace level rate stats, and he's more of like a 1.2 whip guy, and that's not what I want for my ace. But anyways, like before the last start, which was obviously bad, his velo was back up, and so I think people were like thinking, okay, he's back now. But then last start went back down again. But it's not significant. Like he's still at 96. He was up to 97 in 2020. The real issue though is that he's like just really hittable right now. I mean, his swing strike rate on all of his pitches is way down. He's not able to locate his fastball, and he really never has in the past. Like he's always had bad command with his fastball, but his changeup has always been elite. But yeah, like the control just isn't there. The Sierra is at 4.3. Like he's obviously not as bad as he is right now, but I don't know that he's going to ever get to be, back to where people are hoping he gets to. I don't know. I might not be the best person to answer that. I've read a lot of Nick Pollock stuff. I always read his SP roundups and everything, and I was looking back at some of his stuff on Castillo, and I don't know. He kind of thinks like he'll be back to some degree, but I don't know if you're going to get that ace level player, and I feel like you can probably get more than Mullins for him, but I feel like maybe if you're desperate enough, I don't think I'd do it for straight up, but I might get a little bit something added in, and I might be interested.
Mike, what would you take that offer? And if not, or if so, what are your thoughts on Castillo moving forward?
Yeah, I would definitely keep Castillo. If you're trading Castillo now, then you're really saying to yourself, yeah, I'm going to take the worst month he's going to have of the year, and then trade for a guy that is more than likely going to be a bottom level player versus the value that you paid for Castillo. And I'm not saying to hold your players ransom for the first month and a half of the season and make sure that you get the same value for him, et cetera. But Ryan Bloomfield, our boy, for Baseball HQ, did a really amazing Facts Loose piece on Luis Castillo a few days ago, like really dove in to what's going on with him. And, suffice it to say, I mean, his velocity, which was trending, a tick and a half-ish low at the beginning of the year, has started to trend up since the beginning of the season. He's been somebody that really has pitched better in warm weather. And he admittedly struggled at the first start of the season just because of the cold conditions and stuff like that. He's throwing his changeup more than ever before, and it seems like he's throwing it in the correct locations that he's also resembled before as well. Really, the main issue is is mainly location, not being able to hit certain locations, and the slider has been something that he's thrown for more strikes, but it's kind of hurt him in ways because it's been catching more of the plate, and his home run rate has suffered from that. He's never had. I mean, a few years ago he had an 18% home run to fly ball rate. Right now it's at 19%. 1.3 home run per nine right now. That's, not consistent with, it's almost consistent with his career average as well, but he's still getting a fair amount of ground balls. His strikeout rate, I think, is definitely going to trend up really soon here. And for the most part, especially with the velocity gaining steam, I don't think that there's like some, reason to think that there's, something wrong with his arm or anything of that nature. I think, unfortunately, it was just kind of a rough stretch. And while he might not have, when the season's said and done, he's not going to have a 3.2 ERA and a 1.2 WHIP. Well, he might have a 1.2 WHIP, but he might have a 3.2 ERA when the season's done, like he had in 2020. I still could see somewhere around like a 4.10, 3.9, something like that, and that's going to do the rest of the way, from here forward. So if you've already suffered through 7 starts of this, I would continue to ride the wave. I think it's only going to get better. He might not be as good as we thought prior to the year started, but he's also never really posted his best season from a dollars perspective was 2019. He had $19 in value. That's because he had 190 innings pitched with a 3.4 ERA and a 1.14 WHIP. I mean, that was probably the top end scenario that we were hoping for Castillo this year. And if he still ends up going with, 180-ish innings of 3.9 ball with a 1.2 something WHIP, that's still going to be solid. It's not going to be what you paid for, but I think that's going to be ultimately close to what he posts this season, which I'll live with.
Well, so one thing sorry, I was going to say with the velocity, one thing was 2 starts ago it was up, but then last start it was back down again. So it's not really on an uptick.
How far down?
I think just where it was before. I think he went up to 97. I think, and then went back to 96. Something like that. I was looking before.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, but so I don't know that you can count on it coming back up, but maybe it's weather related. I'm not sure. Again, I haven't really dug deep into his previous years if he's always this low at the beginning of the season or not. But I know he's never struggled like this at the beginning of the season. So.
Well, that's not true, though, as we get to my point.
Okay.
His career ERA in the months of March and April is 4.58. He always struggles. Usually struggles.
And we're in May now, and he's at 6.50 or something.
Yeah, but he's had 1 start in May. Like, it's right, but it is what it is. He's going to be fine. He in that 2019 season that Mike referenced, he had the month of August in that season where he had a 5.70 ERA. And he still put up the best numbers of his career. Like he's gonna be fine. Like he's having some issues gripping the changeup and being able to locate it, and is ending up in the zone a little bit too often. I think he's gonna be absolutely fine. Like I said, I traded for him. I traded my boy as part of a big deal, Kyle Gibson, to get him. And So I
Your
traded Posey, Yadier Molina, and my boy Kyle Gibson to get Luis Castillo in a first-round pick next year. And I feel like it was an absolute steal. I'm not worried about Luis Castillo. Will he give you the overall stat line of the ace you were looking for? Probably not. But I too was not in on Castillo this year, mostly because the defense behind him. We were talking about earlier about Suarez getting to move back to thirds. I think that's a great opportunity for guys like Castillo, guys like Tyler Mahle that put a lot of balls on the ground because that defense with Suarez at shortstop is just absolutely brutal. And that was one of the reasons I faded Castillo coming in the year. I just wasn't willing to risk
he's a heavy ground ball guy.
Yeah, because he is a heavy ground ball guy. He's, 50+% ground ball guy. So I think better days are ahead. I would not trade him for Cedric Mullins, even though I absolutely love Cedric Mullins.
I hear you. I definitely think better times are ahead. I'm not convinced that he's just going to be okay, though. I think he's super hittable right now, and that's I don't think he ever has been. Even in April, I'm looking, and he's never been anywhere near this hittable. So I don't know. It's a different type of struggle than he's had before, I think.
All right. A guy that I'm a little bit more worried about than Castillo is Kyle Hendricks. It feels like this is a little bit of Charlie Brown trying to kick the football because it's like, ooh, he had a good start. I can roll him out there again. He goes out and blanks the Dodgers for like one earned run on, in 7 innings, and then gets lit up by the Pirates. Dave, I know you had a lot of shares of Hendricks because you, like me, kind of really liked what we thought was an underrated profile. How worried are you on Kyle Hendricks right now?
I mean, I'm not as worried as I would be if I had Castillo like you, but I will say though, it's tough for him because I don't know if being at 87 miles an hour and then going down to 86 is better or worse than being like 97 to 96. It feels like it's worse, but I've also heard when you're at that low of a velocity, it really doesn't matter, like because you're obviously relying on the difference you're changing in your speeds and your location and all that stuff. But the problem for him is he's not locating. What I noticed is that his first strike percentage is actually up 6%. So I'm thinking maybe hitters are noticing that he's trying to get ahead early and they're jumping on that first pitch and hitting it. And obviously, if he's throwing a strike at 86 miles an hour, it's like a meatball if you're not locating it exactly where you need it to be. Swinging strike rate is down, walk rate is up a little bit. His home run rate is an absurd 2.9 homers per 9, which obviously is going to come back down to earth. His SIERA is 4.4, so like Castillo, he's not this bad, but I don't think he's right yet either. But I do have more faith that he figures it out than Castillo, but they'll probably both figure it out to some degree. I think that's really the point, is that I don't know how much they're going to figure it out, but you have to stick with him because, if you're in a league with trades, obviously you'd be trading at his lowest value, probably that he'll be at.
Mike, where are you at on Kyle Hendricks?
I think that he's going to improve for sure. My worry with him is that he's giving up more hard contact and line drives than ever before. Like he's almost at a 30% line drive rate. And for his career, he's done an amazing job of limiting left-handed batters. Like a 690 OPS for his career is pretty solid, especially for a guy that's more of a crafty individual with low velocity and, great tunneling skills. I mean, he's given up, 5 home runs and 63 plate appearances to lefties this season thus far, 6 home runs to the right side. And that's fairly unusual for him as well. So he's just, he's leaving a lot of pitches. He's showing just some oddly poor command, which is not usual for somebody like Hendricks. So until he is able to kind of limit the hard contact, then we're going to be kind of continuing to see some of these, mediocre starts. To put it in perspective, last year he only had in 2020, 12 games started. He only had 2 starts that were like terrible in PQS, which is what I go by on Baseball HQ. So PQS disasters. This year in 7 starts, he has already accumulated 3 PQS disasters. One of them against Pittsburgh, who is one of the worst teams against right-handed pitching in baseball. Another one against Atlanta, twice against Atlanta. I'm sorry. So Atlanta creamed him twice for 7 earned runs, and then Pittsburgh creamed him for 3. Outside of that, he's really been somewhat solid. I mean, Pittsburgh got to him again for 4 in his last start or whatever. But against LA, he did okay. Milwaukee, he limited him to 2 runs. Milwaukee, again, he limited him to 0 runs. So I'm thinking that this is a thing that is going to correct itself over time, over the course of the season. With that said, he's not going to be the guy that we saw in 2020 that ended up having like a $25 a year. He's probably going to be more like the guy that we saw between 2017 and 2018. Not necessarily the ERA, which was 3.03 and 3.44 those years. I think we're probably going to settle around close to what Castillo was going to settle around, like a 3.8 to 3.9 ERA with a solid whip for Hendricks. The 1.67 is not going to last. He has a 31% ball percentage and a 73% first pitch strike rate. So like the walk rate is going to definitely drop from 6% probably down to 5 or 4%. Which will help things a little bit in terms of whip. He has a 35 or 350 BABIP right now. That's going to drop. So, and his left on base rate is going to go up too. So like, there's a lot of things that are going to play in his favor as the season goes on. But for now, I think he is slightly more hittable than he has been in years past. And I think that might continue unless the command starts to kind of, round into form like it has in years past as well, which, at 31 years old, like he's been stable with his skills at this point. But there is a chance that he's starting to kind of, lose. It might just be one of those years where he's starting to kind of lose some of the command a little bit since he's, not necessarily up there in age, but, maybe he's starting to show some signs of going down in value a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if he's losing a command, he's losing a ton of value because what he does is all predicated on elite command. And, this is the discussion that Dave and I had about Zach Plesac or, guys like Plesac and Hendricks was, the margin for error on these guys is really, really small because if they don't have this command, they're just going to get beat around the yard, especially when they stay in the zone. And that's what's happening with Hendricks. I tend to believe that a guy that has shown this level of talent with command isn't going to just drop off the map the way that it seems like it has already to start the season. And so I'm reserving him in the leagues where I can afford to reserve him, but I would not cut. And I have seen people cut Kyle Hendricks already this season.
No,
I just can't do that yet.
Not unless you're in like an 8, maybe a 10-team league. I don't know. I don't play in those, but outside of those 12, 15s and more, you cannot drop them.
You can't do it. No, you just got to reserve them and hope for the best.
Yep.
Patrick Corbin, my dude. I think we're talking about all my dudes tonight, apparently. The injured ones and the Patrick Corbin-esque ones. Corbin's really struggled this year. He's come back with, a nice start here or there, but the overall line still looks pretty ugly. Mike, do you have any faith in my boy Patrick Corbin turning it around?
I sure don't. I'm just not a big Patrick Corbin guy. He's starting to change his pitch mix a little bit, which I guess is in one sense encouraging. In my sense, in my feeling, is that he's trying to find something that's going to work, particularly against right-handed batters, because the last couple of years here, he has just been unable to get them out, like an 869 OPS against them last year, albeit in a limited sample, but 230 player appearances. And then in the first 100 player appearances this year against righties, he's given up 10 home runs to them. So it's obviously boosted his home run rate to an unsustainable 3.1 home run per 9. His effectiveness is lost for me. I'm not, so I've never really been a big Patrick Corbin guy anyways, because we've really only seen like 2 solid years from him. And that was in 2018 and 2019. Outside of that, his whole career has been like predicated on mediocrity. He's been somebody that just has lived in the, 4-something ERA range with suboptimal whip and strikeout to walk rate that usually sits in the mid-teens to low teens. And that's just not going to do it for you. So for me, I don't think he's this bad. Like, I don't think he's a 7.36 ERA bad and a 1.5 whip, but his 5.56 expected ERA is not awesome. It's not where I think he finishes either. But I do think he finishes north of a 4.5 ERA based on what I'm seeing. And I think that his strikeout rate is going to continue to be like, he only has a 9.5 swing strike rate right now. That's his career worst since 2012. I don't think that it's going to get much better, which means that his strikeout rate probably won't be much better than 15%. It's going to be sub-league average. His walk rate is going to continue to be an issue. I just think all around, like, we're looking at a guy that's like just a streaming option. Like, I just don't have faith. Like, I'm not a Corbin guy. So,
well, you make me sad, Mike. Dave,
I'm sorry.
Make me sadder.
I got nothing for you, buddy. Patrick Corbin is a guy I was way off of. He's essentially a 2-pitch pitcher. I mean, he has 2 different fastballs, I guess you could say, but essentially he's throwing 65% fastballs, 35% sliders, and his slider just isn't doing anything. His velo is even up a tick from last year, but the walk rate is bad, and he's just not fooling anybody. The 5.4 Sierra tells the story, man. I think if I'm in any league, even a 15-teamer, I'm moving on.
Cool. I'm not moving on yet. I'm reserving and kind of waiting a little bit before I have him everywhere. I've got him in like 9 or 10 leagues, including a league in which I picked him up after somebody dropped him. Yeah, it's been pretty ugly so far, and there's not much I can say yet to point towards a recovery. I don't like the pitch mix change time. Like I don't know why. I understand wanting to throw a third pitch, more, or have a fourth pitch technically if he does have 2 different sliders. But why go away from what has been working for you for the last few years? The velocity has been kind of up and down. Yes, there are a lot of reasons to be concerned on Patrick Corbin. I'm not ready to cut bait yet, and maybe this is a bit of my stubbornness. So if you're not stubborn like me, maybe you listen to Dave and Mike, but I'm going to roll with it on my reserve list for a little bit, as long as I can, because I do just trust what I've seen from Corbin in the past, and I think he will end up being okay. But I mean, in his defense, he's got like a 3.50 ERA if you over his last 4 starts. You don't include those first 2 starts. So I mean, he has pitched better as of late. The problem with that is he hasn't really been striking people out in those last 4 starts either. So, yeah, my wife is trolling me in the chat right now. for those, she wrote, I have 1 slider and it works every time.
It's probably better than Patrick Corbin's.
She also said she has a mean knuckleball. So
yeah, these last few starts you're talking about, Justin. So like if you're talking about the PQS scale, though 2 of the last 3 starts have been PQS disasters, mainly because he had 3 walks and 3 strikeouts in 1 start, and then 0 walks and 2 strikeouts and 6 innings pitched in the other start. So really, if you're talking about like a 4.5 ERA with 2 strikeouts over 6 innings, like, okay, I mean, that's fine. But like, he hasn't shown me anything. He hasn't, let's see, he's had 3 starts where he's had more strikeouts than walks out of 6.
I don't see anything redeeming, and I didn't think he was good coming in, so I guess I just don't know what.
I mean, he has had a slightly tough slate. I mean, he's been in the Dodgers. He's been at LA, at home against Arizona, at home against St. Louis, at New York Mets, at New York Yankees, and then home against Miami. Like, it's not the easiest slate of games, so I will give him that. And maybe I'm being a shade too harsh, but like I'm diving into other things here, and I'm just not really. I don't really see it.
Good. I mean, the Dodgers are really the only team of those, and the Dodgers suck against lefties. So really, I mean,
well, you also got the Diamondbacks when they were on that huge tear. Remember earlier in the season when they were just hitting everything out when they still had Marte.
They're second in OPS against lefties. St. Louis is third in OPS against lefties. The Yankees
Miami's good against lefties.
They're top 10. Yeah, they're top 10. And the Mets are league average. So really, like, the Dodgers are the worst offense he's seen out of that group in terms of first lefties.
On the other side of that coin, though, is the fact that he pitches in the NL East, which is a tough place to pitch.
Yes.
Like you've got the Braves, the Phillies, the Marlins are good, like I said, against lefties. The Mets should be better at some point. So, I mean, it's not an easy division to pitch in either.
No.
Speaking of not good places to pitch,
right?
German Marquez has really struggled this year. And it hasn't just been at home. It's been on the road as well. Mike, I can't remember if you are a Marquez truther or not, but what are your thoughts on Marquez? There's been a lot of early home games. So, we can chalk it up to that, but he hasn't been the elite guy on the road that we expect him to be.
No, I mean, his last start on the road against St. Louis, so 1 earned run in 6 innings with 3 walks and 6 strikeouts. San Fran, 4 runs in 4 innings pitched, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. Like, so he's faced San Fran twice and St. Louis once on the road. And really San Fran beat him up 3 times. He's faced them 3 times and they've, scored 15 runs in three starts against them. That's pretty crazy. Especially after I think he did pretty well. Yeah. In 2 starts against them in 2020, he actually crushed them. He had 2.03 ERA. So, overall, I've never been a massive fan of Marquez. I think he's solid, but unspectacular, solid ground ball rate. I don't love his pitch mix. Just the 2 things, the curveball, slider, fastball is fine. I usually like to have guys that have either slider, change up behind the fastball, or something else that's going to help get lefties out. But Marquez, his command is a little bit off this year. I've watched him probably 2 to 3 times. Each time I've watched him, it's been a scenario where his control's been off, and you see that in his walk rate. His ball percentage is up in the 38% range, which is more indicative of a above average walk rate, which is what it is right now at 13%. I probably think that it's going to live in the, he's a 7% career guy, so it probably will trend down a little bit as time goes on. But that lack of command has, started to kind of eat away at some of his, underlying metrics as well. A 4.5 expected ERA is probably where I will land on him this year, which is similar to what he did in 2019, which is what 4.76 ERA, a 1.2 WHIP, 24% strikeout rate, 19% K to walk rate. Like, that's probably where I think he lands for this season, which is, that's a $3 pitcher that season. That makes him like a starting pitcher 5-ish area. And I can kind of see that for him for this year, which isn't terrible. But it's also not something that I think people were expecting when they were, drafting him within the top 180 this year as well. So I'm not necessarily promoting him as somebody to buy, but I do think that it's going to get better from here. I just think that it's going to be inconsistent all year long. And it's going to be a scenario where you're going to have to kind of take some, growing pains as it goes. But I don't think that it's going to be a just full on start him on the road and, don't start him at home. I think you're going to have to take some of the L's with it, because it's going to be inconsistent from start to start, and you're not going to really know. I think he's the type of guy that can have success at home, like he has shown flashes of in the past. John Gray's doing great at home as well this year, but on the road, he's already shown, Marquez has, that he's not somebody that you're going to be able to trust. He's had 2 awful starts and 1, pretty mediocre start there. So
his highest walk rate coming into 2021 was 7.3%. His current walk rate is 13.3%, Dave.
Yeah.
What are you doing if you have Marquez?
And I do. I have a few Marquez shares. I think that's really all it comes down to. The velo is down, but his stuff is still good. He's getting the swings and misses he needs. He's just walking too many guys, and way too many guys. His first pitch strike percentage is all the way down to 54% from 66% in 2020. I don't know why his control is all of a sudden just disappeared, but I think if he can get that back, I think he's good again. I tend to believe that he will. I don't know why he wouldn't, but hopefully he can figure that out. I heard in the 2/3 of an inning start in Coors where he got blasted, I heard he was sick, but they decided to pitch him anyway. So I don't know if
he had gotten the second COVID shot and tried to pitch through it.
Okay, yeah. That's just stupid. Why are we doing this? Give him a couple days, or even skip him if you need to. But clearly that was a bad decision. But you take that away, and it's not like he's getting lit up outside of that. It's just the control. He just needs his control back. So I don't know. I don't know if he can get it back. I think he should be able to. But I would definitely hold him.
Yeah, I'm not overly worried about him. They've had a lot of home starts, and as much as we like to joke about the Giants, they've been really good offensively this year.
They have been.
And they've hit him up when he's been in Oracle Park, and that's just unfortunate. But the Rockies have played a disproportionate amount of games early in the season at home, which means they're going to play more away games. I know he does have 2 home starts coming up here, so you might want to stick him on your reserve list, but I think he's too talented of a pitcher to cut bait on. There will be people who do it. I would probably try to swoop if I was in a league where that happened. All right, let's move right along and talk about Dylan Bundy. Bundy was a guy that had the breakout last year, showed some warning signs that things weren't quite right towards the end of last season. That didn't stop people from paying a huge price on him Dave, where are you at on Dylan Bundy?
I don't own any Dylan Bundy, but looking into him, like all of his metrics look great. His velocity is even up. Despite his 5 ERA, his Sierra is 3.5. It really looks like he's just had some bad strand rate luck. And his last outing was against the Dodgers, and they can make even righty aces look bad. So I would just keep starting him with confidence. I'm not seeing anything there outside of small sample bad luck.
Are you seeing anything, Mike?
No, I like Bundy for the rest of the year. Not in the sense that I think he's going to be a top 100-ish pick, which is where he was going in drafts, but I do think he's a serviceable starting pitcher 3 to 4 range type guy, consistent in terms of what he delivers you. I mean, he's had 7 starts this year and hasn't walked more than 2 in any of them. He has 1 walk or less in 4 of them, and 6 strikeouts or more in 6 of them. I know that made a lot of sense, right? But overall, like, he's somebody that he's had some issues with command as he has in the years past and everything, but his home run rate isn't skyrocketed like it has been in the 2019 and 2017 and 2017 through 2019 area. His velocity is strong, like Dave mentioned, and he's still getting swings and misses. 13% swing strike rate with a 26% strikeout rate overall is consistent with 2020. I like that a lot. I also like that he's kept his walk rate down in the 6% range. He's throwing a solid amount of first pitch strikes. His line drive rate is consistent with last year. Actually, it's a little bit better. He's getting a little bit more ground balls as well. There's a lot to like with Bundy. I think that when the season's said and done, we're probably going to sit around close to what Castillo is going to put up, honestly, like a 3.9 to 4 ERA with a 1.15 to 1.2 WHIP and some solid strikeout numbers. Like, he theoretically could be close to what Castillo posts in terms of the bottom line. Take that with whatever you want to take that with.
And I mean, I tend to agree with you guys. And I was not a Dylan Bundy guy coming into the season, mostly due to health. My fear is, this is a guy who's never been able to stay healthy over the course of his career. And we saw the velo drop last year, and I went, I'm just not going to risk it. But he's actually been really good in spite of what the surface stats tell us. Like you guys said, the xERA is 3.07. He's striking out guys at one per inning. Like it. I don't have an issue with Dylan Bundy right now. I do think he's just getting unlucky. The best part about it is, this is a guy who tends to give a lot of home runs because he loses command within the zone, and he's not doing that. He's only had 1 multi-homer game so far this year. His last 2 starts, even though they haven't looked good based on what the numbers tell us, no home runs in those last 2 starts. I think Dylan Bundy's going to be just fine as long as he stays healthy. I don't trust personally that he's going to stay healthy long term, but that's just his history, and maybe he can. You didn't pay a huge price for him this year, so. Charlie Morton is a guy that I'm a little bit more worried upon. He looked really, really bad in that last start. He has gone from looking good to looking atrocious this season, dealt with some injury issues last year, which is what derailed the beginning of his career. Mike, you're a Rays guy, so you got to see a lot of Charlie Morton over the last few years. Are you worried about Charlie Morton?
I am a little bit, mainly because of that last start. I did watch the last start, and he was all over the place. And I just, especially with the right shoulder stuff the last couple of years, you really have to take that into account here. He's 37 years old. He has missed time each of the last couple of years, even though it doesn't really show up. Like, he only had 9 starts last year. Then he pitched in the playoffs for the Rays. Prior to that, he had went 30 starts 2 years in a row, but that still came with like some off days here and there, not necessarily an official IL stint, but he's always had some kind of nicks and bruises. And then coming into this year, he really wasn't that bad, but the last start really has me fairly worried just because of the fact that he was so all over the place and the command was off. His velocity has been fine for the year, and I guess if you're going to assess him, you assess him based on what he's done this season. And so far, he's at like a 3.66 expected ERA, which is a run and a half less than his actual ERA right now. His WHIP is an issue, which it was last year as well. He's failing to get ahead of hitters. He's at a 58% first pitch strike rate. His ball percentage mimics that as well. He's still striking guys out, but the swing strike rate is down. His pitches, to me, he's losing some command, especially with the curveball. And if he loses command with the curveball, he's given up 5 home runs in 5 straight starts. And like, he's somebody that, he needs the command to be able to kind of make everything work. Every pitcher does, obviously, but in his sense, he really needs to be able to, get pitches in the zone where he needs them to be for him to be successful, because his stuff just isn't quite as good as it used to be. And in this scenario, I think we're going to start to see him, drop significantly from what we saw, especially in 2019. I don't think anybody was expecting him to be a 3 ERA guy with a 1 whip. But, right now, I probably would say that he's probably going to fall in line with like a 4.15 ERA and like a pretty heightened whip, like 1.25, 1.3 area. And, league average to slightly above average strikeout rate. But the walk rate, I think, is going to remain like it's at 9% right now. I think it's probably going to stay above league average. And I think, his strikeout rate, while I think it will be about league average or so, it definitely is at risk, especially if he's getting less swings and misses and his command is off. So, yes, I am overall a little bit worried about Charlie Morton. I don't necessarily think that he's a safe bet the rest of the way at all.
You know what the craziest part of his stat line is so far? In that 2/3 of an inning start that he had over the weekend, he gave up 6 runs, and none of them were earned.
Yeah, which I actually just noticed. It was those 6 runs don't even factor into his almost 5 ERA. Right.
Dave, where are you at on Morton?
Yeah, and so let's talk about that. The reason that those were unearned is because he actually shouldn't have been in this position in the first place. I mean, he started out fine. He got a ground out. Then there was a dropped 3rd strike. Then he got squeezed versus Harper, where they gave him a walk instead of a strikeout, which it should have been. Then he gave 2 singles, then a jammed ground ball, a jammed flare out, and then he threw a bad pitch for a 3-run homer. I mean, this shouldn't have ever happened. He should have been way the fuck out of that inning before any of this ever occurred. And as things start snowballing, obviously then you can make a mental error as he did with that cutter that led to that 3-run homer. But this is not as big of a deal as I think some people are thinking it is. I'd be looking to buy low on Charlie Morton right now. I think he's still got the talent. He was at 93.5 miles per hour in 2020. He's up to 95 now. The curve is still great. There's a lot of flukiness here. He's not throwing enough first pitch strikes. He needs to do that. But his strand rate is at 58%. The stuff is good. He just needs a little more control, a little more luck, and I think he's fine. He's still got a 3.75 Sierra. I would even keep starting him, even this week against Toronto. I'd still be starting him if I have him in those leagues. So I'm a believer in Charlie Morton still.
I feel exactly the same that I did coming into draft season. Is I don't know what the fuck to think. And this is coming from someone who's watched a lot of Charlie Morton. I watched a lot of him last year. I had such a hard time kind of pegging where I wanted to rank him in my ranks coming into the season that I went back and watched every single one of his starts last year, and still at the end of it was I don't know what the fuck to do with Charlie Morton. And I mean, the cutter has not been very good this year. I wonder if there's an injury going on. I mean, this is a guy, like I said, dealt with injuries last year, has dealt with injuries, in the early part of his career that did derail the kind of him taking off, during his career. So I'm wondering if there's something going on that he's trying to pitch through, because he just doesn't look mechanically fluid on the mound right now. And like Mike said, he's a guy who really relies on the command. And if he's not able to repeat his mechanics properly, he's not going to be able to locate within the zone well enough. And so I do wonder if there is something, maybe a nagging injury or something going on with him that he's just trying to pitch through because it's likely his last season. He's trying to help the Braves win. They're going to be in a dogfight of a division. I would not buy low on him. I also would not sell on him. I'm holding on him in every conceivable way. So if he's on my team, I'm not going to try and sell him right now. And if he's not on my team, I'm not actively going out and buying him unless I'm getting a really big discount. So I'm kind of just staying away from making a decision. He's probably going to hit my reserve list, unless you're stuck with a bunch of guys like we've been talking about. And there are people who are in these positions where it's oh, well, I can't stick Kyle Hendricks, Patrick Corbin, and Charlie Morton in my reserve. I got to play one of them. I play him over Corbin. I probably wouldn't play him over Hendricks. So let's move right along and hit our next guy, which is Frankie Montas. Montas has had a weird season after a weird season last year. and he's struggled so far out of the gate. Dave, are you worried about Frankie Montas?
You know, to be honest, until I saw his name on this list, I hadn't even paid him a single mind of attention. Like I just hadn't even. I don't own him anywhere. I know you own some of him, but yeah, just never really had much interest in him for a number of reasons. But honestly, I don't see a whole lot here to panic about. He got crushed by the Dodgers in his first start, which again, Dodgers against righties, first start, that makes sense. And then he got hit up by Minnesota later, which again, Minnesota's a solid offense. And then other than that, he seems like he's been pretty solid in all of the rest of his starts. He's got a 4.09 Sierra. I don't think he's an ace. I don't think he's an every week starter. I think he's a guy who, he's like a supplementary guy. He's a guy who you can stream against pretty much anybody who's not one of the top, 7 or 8 offenses in baseball. And he should be solid. I'm just probably benching him against teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, and I think he'll probably be okay. I think I'd even start him again against the Twins. I think he started playing against the Twins this week. I think I wouldn't have any problem starting him there either, especially since they don't have Buxton there. So, I don't think there's really any reason to panic with Montas.
Mike, are you panicking all with Montas?
I'm not panicking on him. I need him to throw his fucking split finger more is what I need. Like he gets,
which he said he was going to start doing in spring.
Yeah, he's not fucking doing it. And it's pissing me the hell off.
Never trust what pitchers say in spring. I've noticed it's bullshit.
Yeah, it's true.
He keeps throwing this sinker, which has no movement, and it just gets clobbered. I mean, it has the second highest exit velocity of any pitch he has. Meanwhile, he has a split finger that doesn't have that much movement either, but it keeps hitters off balance. It has the lowest exit velocity of any pitch he has. It has like a 60-something% ground ball rate. I just don't understand why he doesn't throw the pitch more. So he's had home run issues each of the last 2 seasons now. This is after his breakout, 2019 campaign where he had a 2.63 ERA and a 1.11 whip. If we're going to ever get a semblance of that again, he needs to throw that split finger again at like an 18 to 20% clip, along with his 96, 97 mile an hour fastball and sinker combination. He needs to continue to do that. And if he's not going to do that, then we're going to continue to see some issues in terms of home runs. He's had issues against lefties each of the last 2 years now because he has, lats giving them something different to look at in terms of tunneling and, a different velocity to look at as well. But for now, he's been somewhat inconsistent. I don't think that he's as bad as he's shown for sure. I mean, he's got a 4.55 expected ERA, which is like a full run less than what he's posted. His walk percentage at 6% right now. He's an 8% guy for his career, which is about league average. But the last few years, he's been in the 6 to 7% range. So I actually expect the walk rate to remain about where it is now. He's throwing more first pitch strikes as well than he has ever before in his career. Still getting 13% swing strike rate, which means I think his strikeout percentage is going to go up from what it is right now. I think the home run rate will go down as well. I mean, it's literally at the same exact thing as it was in 2020, which is around 1.7, 1.8 with a above average home run to fly ball rate at 16% right now. Like if the home runs come down, which I think they will, and the strikeout rate goes up, then we're going to be talking about a guy that is going to resemble somewhere between 2020 and 2019, which I know that's like a stark contrast between each other, but a 4-ish ERA with strong strikeout numbers, good walk rate. He is getting a little bit unlucky in BABIP right now. It's in the 340 range, and he's getting unlucky in the strand rate department as well. But overall, things are going to get better. Like he pitches in a great home ballpark. He definitely is a health risk, and he's a risk in terms of the pitch mix because I don't know if he'll ever be a guy that's just going to throw the splitter as much as I want him to. But overall, I think things will get better as long as he's on the field. We'll have to see. I mean, he's had some bad luck the last couple of years, especially in terms of injuries, but I'm a fan of Montas. I think that, his best season probably will be 2019 when it's all said and done. But I do think that we can get another couple of years of really solid value out of him if he can just kind of hit his stride a little bit. And I just don't know if he has yet to do that,
I mean, here's the thing. It's 2 bad starts. That's it. It's 2 bad starts. It's the start against the Dodgers and the start against the Twins, where I got hit, gave up 3 home runs because he couldn't command the ball. I mean, if you take those 2 starts out, he's got a 2.75 ERA. If you just take out the first start against the Dodgers, he's got like a 4.03 ERA. Like we wouldn't be talking about him if, and most people didn't start him for that first one because he was coming off the COVID IL and it was the Dodgers, right? So I think he's going to be just fine. He does. I agree with Mike. He needs to be throwing that splitter more. it just, but outside of that, I think he's a very, very usable number 3, number 4 starting pitcher that you probably got for less than that. And so I'm totally going to keep rolling him out there. I don't have any worries. I'll roll him out there this week against Minnesota, even though they beat him last time. Like Dave said, they don't have what has been one of their better bats in Byron Buxton. And they're also missing Kirilloff. They're missing Luis Ariz. I think, it's an offense you can probably take advantage of pretty easily. So moving right along, because I do want to get to the questions because there are some really good ones, including one that just popped up into the chat, which is fantastic. But Nathan Ivaldi, he has struggled so far this year. The thing with Ivaldi's always been that, he just can't stay on the mound, right? But he's really good when he pitches. Has not been the case yet this season. Dave, are you worried about Ivaldi?
He's another guy I don't own. But looking at him, the metrics look very good too. It really just looks like some bad luck with a low strand rate of 61% combined with a 342 BABIP holding him back. But again, I think that's just small sample bad luck. 355 Sierra says he's been pretty good. I think the one thing is you have to just kind of make peace with the fact that he will have outings like this pitching in Fenway. You're gonna have some tough outings. Now, you don't expect them to come from teams like the Mariners and the Tigers, but that's kind of part of pitching in Fenway. The White Sox start, obviously you could see that coming. But, he's a streamer, but he's a guy who you should probably feel confident streaming away from Fenway and just kind of pick and choose within Fenway where you want to play him.
What about you, Mike? Are you worried about Ivaldi at all?
I mean, I am worried about the injury piece of it for sure, but
for sure.
I think from a skills perspective, he's like Dave said, he's pretty solid. I think that we're going to see a fair amount of improvement, even though he hasn't given up a home run yet this year, which is kind of crazy, especially when you see the 1.5, 1.7, 2.1 marks that he gave up 3 of the last 4 years with higher than average home run to fly ball rate. So I do think the home runs are coming, but I think that when the home runs come, he likely will, give up less in some of the other, luck-based categories as well. So I think it'll start to even out here. 3 of the last 4 starts, he's given up 4 runs or more at home, coincidentally. So I think that there's going to be better times to come here. He's at a 3.5 expected ERA with a 1.23 WHIP. His walk rate will, I think, be higher or better than league average, and his strikeout rate will be about league average. So you're looking at a guy that's more than likely going to perform, I'd say, a fair amount better as long as he's on the field over the course of the next couple months for sure.
Ivaldi is the only qualified pitcher
not to give up
a home run so far this year.
Wow, that's crazy.
His injury history is vast, though. If you look at it, he missed.
Never stays on the mound.
No,
3 years in a row now.
You can't count on him for health for sure.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, you ride until the wheels fall off. I think he's going to be just fine. 3.14 x ERA, 2.05 FIP. I mean, he's a guy he's going to be fine. He's gotten a little bit unlucky here, but I think he's going to be fine. I want to move.
He proved why I just don't pick guys who play in Fenway. Like in the AL East is so dangerous, man. If you're
especially with Baltimore hitting. Yeah. Like, I mean, with Baltimore hitting early on in the season, like there's no dead team.
No safe places. Yeah, like Tampa, that's it. Tampa's not hitting, but I feel like eventually they will.
Yeah, I don't have any fear about Tampa not hitting. So, Ryan Yarbrough, speaking of Tampa, he has been maddening in the same way that Kyle Hendricks has been maddening because he'll go out there, put up a dud, you put him on your reserve list or your bench, and then he goes out there, throws a good outing, and you're like, all right, time to fire up Ryan Yarbrough just so he burns you again. I know this because I've been doing it all season, and it's really pissing me off. Mike, as the resident Rays homer, I'll let you go first on this one. Am I just going to be punching myself in the face over Ryan Yarbrough all season long?
I mean, I think that he's going to perform kind of close to this the rest of the way. A lot of this has been earned. He's at a 4.51 expected ERA, a 4.58 actual ERA. His walk rate is consistent with what it's been throughout the last couple of years here. His strikeout rate is also consistent with what it's been the last couple of years. I think 2020 in a short stint might just end up being a really good small sample versus what he normally is. And in 2019, when he had 140 innings pitched, he was a 4 ERA guy with a 1 WHIP. I think that his WHIP this season at 1.34 is higher than I would expect, for him to finish with. But like he'll probably drop it down to like a 1.2, 1.17, somewhere in there. But it's not going to be that much higher on the ERA front. I just don't see him as a sub 4 ERA guy because his stuff is not that great at all. He definitely relies solely on command, and it's also from the left side. His cutter has been great. He hasn't placed it as well as he normally has, so that's something that's going for him that I think we will see start to improve. His velocity is down even more than it has been in years past at like 86 miles an hour. So take that for what it's worth as well, although it jumped up a little bit the last start to 87. But overall, he pitches in a tough division. And he's a guy that just really doesn't have a lot in terms of stuff. So he's going to be pretty consistent with what he's done the last couple of years, albeit not as good as he was in 2020 in a short sample. So, yeah, I don't think that you're going to see much better than what we saw in 2019. Or I don't think you're going to see better than we saw in 2019. But I do think you'll see better than we've seen now, just not much.
All right, Dave, where are you at on Yarbrough?
Yeah, a lot of what Mike said, pretty much. I think this more or less is who he is, but I think he's due a little bit of good luck with the, he's got a 336 BABIP with a 63% strand rate. I think those will both improve. His SIERA is slightly better than his ERA, but, I think this is kind of where he lives. And if his command is off a little bit, he's going to get hit up. And I think he's basically just a streamer to throw in when the matchup is right. And that's about it. He wasn't really a guy that I was high on coming into the season, especially being a Ray and never knowing how they're going to use him and how long they're going to leave him in and stuff. Just a frustrating guy to own, I would have to imagine.
No wonder some of my teams are struggling because we continue to talk just about my teams because I do have a lot of Ryan Yarbrough. Here's the thing. In the 3 starts that he has had an opener, he has a 123 WHIP and a 123 ERA and a 105 WHIP.
Interesting.
He needs an opener. Oh my God, Tampa.
He's typically done it that way too. Like especially in years past, they've really done it. Like they used to start Diego Castillo even for an inning or two and then throw Yarbrough behind him.
Get the lineup used to a hard throwing righty, and then you put Yarbrough in there as the counter to it. I don't understand why Tampa Bay has not figured this out yet. He needs to have an opener. It actually does make a lot of sense. And it's huge for his fantasy value, too, because he's not a guy who's necessarily going to go 6 innings a lot of the time. He's usually a guy who's like, hey, here's 4 1/3, of really good ball with an opener that has a lot of value. Without an opener, it does not have a lot of value. They have let him have an opener in 3 of his last 4 starts. It looks like they've started to pick up on this as well. Tampa Bay doesn't do things traditionally normally. They're starting to get a little bit of their bullpen back health-wise. So maybe this is a time in which they can start kind of employing this strategy again. I'm still in on Ryan Yarbrough. I love his command when that cutter's working right. So I'm not giving up on him. And again, maybe this is me being hard-headed, but the splits versus having an opener, not having an opener shows me kind of a little bit of the difference here.
So what I hear you saying is you're never going to give him up, even though he's letting you down.
Nope. I'm never going to let you go.
One of my favorite music videos ever.
Everybody's favorite music video ever, honestly.
We're going to finish off our struggling pictures with Kenta Maeda. Maeda was a guy that was very, very polarizing for people coming into 2020. There were some people who were all on board the Kenta Maeda train, and then there were some people who were like, I'm not touching it. I don't like the peripheral numbers. He has struggled to start the season. That being said, went out in his last start through 5 1/3, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs, only 2 walks and 2 hits. He might be turning around, or maybe this is a mirage. Dave, I see you shaking your head over there. Where are you at?
Please, God, be turning it around, because I have a lot of Maeda. I mean, he was a guy who I was investing in as one of my first pitchers. Ideally, he wouldn't be my ace, but there was a place or two where he was. So, when you're not striking out as many guys and you're getting hit hard, that doesn't work very well. 341 BABIP doesn't help either, but when you're getting hit hard, the BABIP tends to be higher. So he's got a 3.9 Sierra, and I'm hoping it's really just about his command. I mean, his slider is so good. It's been one of the top 5 sliders in the last 5 years, and it's just been horrible this year because he's leaving it out over the heart of the plate. Like I think I saw 34% of the time. At least that was before the last start. I don't know if it got better last start, but the slider also isn't getting the same drop on it that it usually does. So when you combine his best pitch not working and struggling with your command, and he still doesn't seem like he's found his changeup either. So while his last start was good, I believe it was against the Tigers, right?
The Rangers.
Oh, Rangers. Okay. Well, yeah. His next is he was supposed to have a start against the Tigers that got postponed. So now he gets to face the lowly White Sox instead, which is just awesome. The
White Sox aren't as dangerous as they were a month ago.
I know, thankfully. But I still don't love it. I would much rather have him facing the Tigers. By the way, I want to say what's up to Mike Govier, who's making fun of me on Twitter as we are live streaming this. So that's his Tigers team. I mean, I feel good with him playing against weak offenses, but I don't think he's totally back yet. I don't think he's a guy you can just throw in every week again. But I do think he'll get there. I obviously his numbers at the end of the season probably aren't going to be that of an ace, but I'm hoping that they can be number 3 type starters by the end of it.
Mike, where are you at on Maeda?
I think that he's going to be able to turn it around here. I do worry about health with him just because he has never really thrown, like outside of 2016 when he threw 175 innings. We haven't seen him throw more than 150, which was in 2019. So hold
on. Because the reason he hasn't thrown that many innings was because the Dodgers screwed around with him. It wasn't necessarily health.
The Dodgers have proven that they are like smarter than everybody in terms of building a club. So I think that there's a reason. But
it was contractual based.
Yeah, it was to keep his money. They didn't have to pay him if they didn't.
Yeah, that's also a part of running a club. So no, I'm just kidding. I just haven't seen him do it. So yes, that might have been the constraints, but he also is 33 years old and he's yet to throw 175 innings pitched since 2016. So I think it's reasonable to expect that he's not going to be able to be as effective as he was in 2020 over the course of a full year in 2021, based on his age and the lack of an innings pitch track record that is, usurped more than 150 innings or whatever. Either way, I think that his effectiveness is going to return to the levels of 2020. No, but I don't love that his split finger is dropped in whiff rate like by more than 50%. I think almost 60%. And like Dave mentioned, his slider isn't really his best pitch, and it hasn't been nearly as effective as I would like. To this point, a 308 batting average against isn't awesome. Mind you, it's a 230 xBA with it, but 86 mile an hour exit velocity against this year versus 84% last year. There's some little things here that I'm not in love with, but he's great in walk percentage. He's going to continue to keep guys off base. 59% first pitch strike rate isn't awesome for walk rate, but his ball percentage remains consistent. His swing and strike rate has dropped from 18% last year to 14.5% this year, which tells me that the 32% strikeout rate he had in 2020 is probably a mirage. I don't think that's going to be as low as 21%, which is what it's been this year, but I think it's going to climb back up to like the 26, 27, 28% range, somewhere in there, maybe 25. But mainly we're not going to see what we saw in 2020. I think we're going to see more of like a 3.7-ish ERA with a 1.1 to 1.2 whip, solid, stats overall with probably 160-ish innings, maybe 165 is what I'm hoping for. Which is a great year, but he was going inside the top 50. And I think that was a little bit too crazy.
I'm wondering, and I mean, this is completely me just thinking about this in the moment, because and not having done any research on it whatsoever, because I don't even know how you would quantify this. I wonder how much 2020 is having an effect on certain pitchers because they didn't have to pitch in the cold last year.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because they started the season in July.
Yeah, right. So I do wonder about. I mean, because you go look at his heat maps over on Baseball Savant, and you can see what the problem is. He's living in the middle of the zone way too often with pitches that should never be in the middle of the zone.
And like all of these guys outside of Bundy, Morton, and Yarborough are all in cold weather cities too.
Right.
So,
and play in division with a lot of cold weather cities.
Yeah.
And Bundy, is one of those guys that we're saying to worry about.
Exactly.
I do wonder a little bit if the weather is getting to Maeda, getting to a number of these guys, especially because they did not have to pitch at all in cold weather last season. His issues,
before that, he was in LA with the Dodgers, so he didn't have cold weather a whole lot there either.
Yeah, so I mean, he's never really had to pitch in cold weather early in the season. Because I mean, it's clear that he is not commanding his pitches within the zone properly. Right. He's leaving, some pitches up. He's leaving some pitches in the middle, and you look at the red spots on those heat maps, and you're going, okay, well that makes sense because those pitches are just getting murdered. I don't think the last start was necessary against Texas. While the overall line is good, I think that had more to do with Texas. If you go back and watch that start, there were some really bad swings. I had some really bad pitches as well. So I don't necessarily think he's turned the corner at this point. I do have some faith in Maeda. He's been a very good pitcher for a long time. I think he's a smart guy that will figure it out, especially once he starts getting a little bit better feel for his pitches. That being said, not a guy I'm trying to buy low on right now. Absolutely not. At the same time, I'm not selling low on him either. So,
no.
And I'm probably not sitting him. I don't know how many teams can really afford to sit a guy that they drafted as their first or second pitcher. So he's not a guy that I'm
maybe if you're in a 10-team league and you've got a whole bunch of great options, but outside you got to just keep playing him.
No,
most of us don't. Yeah, most of us don't have great options right now, or even have
much as healthy options on a double dip.
Oh, Jesus. All right, let's we've got a few chat questions. I'll throw them up there on the screen for those of you who are watching, and then I'll ask the guys what they think. The first question is, who would you rather have the rest of the way, Jared Walsh, Christian Walker, or Ryan Mountcastle? Dave.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. I wish the answer were Christian Walker because I have him in a couple of places, but no, it's Jared Walsh. Now that they got rid of Pujols, the playing time is wide open for him. And I mean, he's flat out just the metrics support that he's just a better hitter. I was in on him last year, and he honestly looks pretty darn similar to what he did last year. He doesn't swing and miss as much. I mean, Ryan Mountcastle's swinging strike percentage is 19%. Jared Walsh's is 10%. So almost double. Not a good thing. And he's hitting the ball. He's got a 110.6 max EV. He's hitting the ball plenty hard. I'm not seeing from Christian Walker what I need to right now. His strikeout rate's up a little bit, but it's more that he's not hitting the ball hard. I mean, he's always like the last 2 years before this year, he's been like a 48, 49% hard hit rate guy with a 110 to 112 max EV. And this year he's at 33% with a 109 max EV. Now, he just came back from being hurt. Maybe he's still, getting into the swing of things, and he'll pick it up soon here, hopefully. But right now, I got to go with Walsh.
Walker needs to pick it up soon because when they start getting guys healthy, they'll move Pavin back to first base if Walker's not hitting. So he better pick it up pretty soon. I agree with you. For me, it's Walsh. I don't think it's particularly close. I think Walker's actually last on this list for me.
I agree.
So Mike, you agree?
Yeah, I was going to say Walsh, and then Mountcastle, I wrote up a long thing for Facts Flukes on for this year and beyond, but I would agree with your sentiment that Walker's last. I think that Pavin Smith is going to take his job, and that he's in real jeopardy of losing a significant amount of playing time and being a pretty significant bust for this year overall. So Walker, I'm extremely worried about of the three, but Walsh is by far the best bet. Yeah.
Not to mention they've got a pretty darn good hitter in Seth Beer in the minor leagues that will probably
you'll never get this guy up either.
I'm not going to. When they add the DH next year, you watch out.
He needs to be a DH is the problem.
he may be the worst defender in baseball.
Well, no, Dan Vogelbach still wears a uniform. So,
oh no, dude, no. I watching him in Arizona Fall League. Oh my God! I mean, he made some plays that he didn't make some plays that
I was just saying, made them. I mean, hey,
no, he missed a pop up to first base that was like 2 feet foul of the bag, and like missed it by 2 feet. Like he only had to move 5 feet to get it. Maybe he missed it by 2 feet.
Maybe he's just like really trying to plant his flag and being a DH. Like he's just saying, like, hey guys, how many times I gotta tell you, don't play me in the field? He
no one needs the DH more than Seth Beer. All right, next question. Speaking about first basemen that aren't very good, Bobby Dahlbeck, is he worth keeping on my roster? Still hoping he gets hot at some point. I'm going to go first on this one just because I want to say this, and I've said it a few times recently on Sleeper on the Bust. Shout out to, Denny Green, the GOAT. He is who we thought he was. Like, this is it. Like, I mean, I understand people saw the hot streak last year, saw the hot streak in spring, but we all knew it was going to come crashing down. He is Miguel Sano light or Joey Gallo light, which means he's going to have really hot stretches and then really cold stretches. If you can afford to roster him the whole year, you look at the end of the season line and go, yeah, I got a 230 batting average, but I also got 30 home runs. But you have to just stick with it. Like,
I think 230 is high. I think
it could be 215.
Yeah.
But this is why, like, this is why the projection systems put him at like a 230 or 220 batting average, is because this is the ups and downs you expect. The problem with guys like these, the difference between Miguel Sano and Joey Gallo and a guy like Dahlbeck, is the Red Sox don't necessarily need to keep playing him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They may, because they're not expecting to win. But would you guys be surprised by mid next month that he's riding the bench or back down in AAA? Because I wouldn't. Whereas Sano's not going to do that, and Gallo's not going to do that. They're both going to play. Sano's going to play. They signed him to an extension. He's going to play.
The Red Sox, by the way, are in contention. They fully don't ask them if they think that they're competing. They definitely feel like they can compete this year. And Dahlbeck is
not going to compete. That rotation is not good enough to compete.
No, it probably isn't. But they have funds and they have assets, so they could definitely make some moves. But Dahlbeck is not worth rostering to me unless you're in an OBP format, and even right now, his OBP has been awful to the point where it's been unrosterable as well. But I would say that there's probably better options for you out there. Like, take the year off with Dahlbeck, let him figure some of the plate skill stuff out to where he's not a 35% strikeout guy. Maybe wait until he can get to like 32% or something around there. He might end up this year with 23 home runs or something, but that's going to come, like you said, with a 215 average and suboptimal counting stats with that. So like I just don't think that this is the time, and he might end up hitting 6 of those home runs in a matter of 3 days, and you might be like, shit, Mike was wrong. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a rocky road.
And he's also hitting like 9th in that order and doesn't necessarily play every day. I mean, he's the quintessential guy that I don't even draft. Like he's the guy that I cross off my list, so I don't even have to worry about stuff like this. But the problem with the question is that I don't know what his league is, in his roster. Like, it's hard to answer this, but yeah, I would probably move on and pick someone else up.
If you're in a points league where you get docked for strikeouts or something, then he is an automatic cut, no matter what the size league it is. And if it's a normal 5x5 league, if it's a 12-team league, I think he's a cut. If he's a 15-team league, you can ride him on your bench. And if you're in an on-base percentage league, I hypes his value up a little bit, but I'm talking like 5 to 10% maybe.
He is a lefty masher. He's hitting 333 against lefties this year, 315 against lefties for his career. He's hitting 123 against right-handed pitching this year.
Yeah, and they have Hunter Renfroe on roster too. So between the two of them, they're gonna, have world domination.
He's in danger of becoming a weak side platoon bat, or just heading back down to the minors, try to figure things out.
I don't know how close Tristan Casas is. I don't know that he's going to
be close. I think
he's pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
well, I would say that's this time clock right there.
Yeah, I think they'll give Cassis a chance to get his feet a little bit wet at AAA, but I would, like I said, I would not be surprised if Dahlbeck was in the minors by this time next month. So
I wouldn't be there.
All right. I think this is our last question, and it's a really interesting one, one that we don't necessarily get on fantasy podcasts. It's a long question. There are a variety of intangibles that players have today that have changed and evolved the game. A lot of players are judged based on their skills. With that being said, I'm wondering, do you think a player or players will ever break the hitting records of Ty Cobb and Pete Rose? Do you think anyone will ever surpass Cy Young's win someday, or has the game changed too much for that to occur? I'll start. I think the hitting records will fall. I do at some point. It just
think somebody hits 400.
Yes, I do. I think it'll happen at some point. Hitters have just become really, really good, and when you make a bet of one guy versus the field, you always take the field. Like, that's just, we're talking about from this point in history forward, are these records going to fall? Records are made to be broken. There's two records that I feel very confident will not be broken. It's the wins record, because guys don't get wins like they used to, or stay healthy the way they used to, or are allowed to pitch the way they used to. So like I would be surprised if we see another 300 win pitcher ever.
Yeah, the 300 wins for a pitcher, I don't know if we will ever see again, because of the fact that, like, I think the closest we had recently was CC Sabathia, and he really wasn't that close.
He wasn't close at all.
Cy Young had 511. I just looked up. So
there's no way.
Like,
there's no way. Now with the way the game is today, I'm highly.
The other record is Cal Ripken's Ironman record.
Yeah,
no one will ever even come remotely close to that. I mean, it's really rare we see anybody play 162 games in one season nowadays.
Do you think that the home run record, like for a season, though, will get hit? Because I think with the way pitching is, I don't know. With the way pitching is nowadays, I don't know if anybody is going to be able to do that. Like, mind you, these are all things. I mean, Barry Bonds broke a record that was seemingly unbreakable as well, and not just the single season record, but like, Hank Aaron's record was something that nobody would ever see being broken either.
Records are meant to be broken.
But the Pete Rose, the Pete Rose record, I don't know, man, because like you need to average.
Ichiro already broke it.
Or who?
Ichiro already broke it.
Oh, did he?
If you add up Ichiro's hits in Japan with his hits,
no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So
you don't think if Ichiro had started his career in the U.S., he wouldn't have broken it? He would have. He would have broken it.
I'm going based on facts. He did not do that. So I mean, sure, maybe.
I'm saying somebody's going to come along and be the next Ichiro at some point.
But you would have to play what? 17 seasons and get like 280.
The guys are coming up earlier than they ever have. We're seeing 19-year-old, 20-year-olds come into the majors. Someone's going to have a 18-year career and do that. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I do believe it will happen.
Do you think it'll be Bobby Dahlbeck?
I do not think about it. He could set the career strikeout record for hitters.
He might. I definitely think, though, of all the records, the wins is
there's no way.
And I think the Ironman one is also a great one, because nobody is ever gonna not take the days off, like somebody like Ripken.
Teams won't let
But I also agree with the sentiment, though, that records are made to be broken. Even like in the NBA, like the 100-point record, from what was it, Wilt Chamberlain. Like, I don't think that's going to be broken soon, but I definitely think it could be. There's definitely merit to that. But the hits one, I think in my mind is just really I think that's gonna be one of the tougher ones to break for sure.
And my wife is still trolling me. She said that players can't break the records because they get drafted by me and then they get hurt. So she's just mad because I picked up a player that she had on her team and then he got injured like the next day.
My friends blame me when that happens too. It happens all the time. And then what they tell me to do is bench guys who are cold. They're like, Dave, we really need, Christian Walker to start hitting. Can you please bench him or drop him so then he'll go on a hot streak? And I'm like, yep, all right, I can hook you up with that.
Dave, do you have any thoughts on any of these records that you think potentially could or won't be broken?
I don't. You guys covered it pretty well. I'm a fantasy baseball guy. I'm not really a historical baseball guy, so I had to look up these records to even know what we were talking about. I was like, I know who these guys are, but I don't know what the records are. 511 wins for Cy Young. I don't think that's going to get broken.
No, I mean, we'd be lucky if anybody gets to half of that at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. The average record, I mean, it's over 400. I don't know that anyone's going to hit over 400. I think I can see the home run record being broken. But everything else you guys said, I agree with. The Iron Man.
The average record may be difficult because of just the way.
Yeah, I don't.
How good pitchers are.
Pitchers have perfected the swing and miss game now better than ever in the game of baseball. Like their sabermetrics and drive line and all of these places that have maxed velocity and spin rate and all of these different analytics have like literally given pitchers the opportunity to have the upper hand over hitters tenfold. I would say, like, so until the game changes, like legitimately, which it will. I mean, the game has changed so much over the course of 100 years, whatever it is. But until that changes, like I would say, 400 batting average, and it's definitely not going to be broken unless.
I mean, I think the best candidate for the highest average to come along recently is Juan Soto. Like, and I can see him hitting like 370.
Sure.
I can't see him hitting like 420 or whatever. Like that feels kind of absurd. The only thing, like you said, with the pitchers being as good as they are, it's really on the average scale. It's hard to see, but you are going to see more and more home runs because they throw so hard, and you don't have to do as much. There's a lot more of those three outcomes. Strikeout, walk, and home runs. So I can see the home run record being broken. I can't see the average record being broken.
League contact is down to, I think, worst for MLB as well. Like contact now is worse than it's ever been.
For
Velocity is higher than it's ever been. Spin rate is higher than it's ever been.
And that's Danielle actually just asked, what's the velocity difference? I mean, we're talking about like the velocity difference is not only bigger like than it was 100 years ago. It's bigger than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's gigantic. I mean, it has gotten to the point. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, there were not guys throwing triple digits. It just,
velocity.
There was Nolan Ryan, and that was it.
I did hear that like the way we measure or the way we do velocity is different now, where like they weren't measuring from the same point, like where Billy Wagner would have been throwing 100 if they measured it the same way. I don't know.
Yeah, but now everybody throws 100.
Yeah. The average right-handed pitcher back 15, 20 years ago was probably throwing in the 92, 93 range, maybe even 91.
Yeah, maybe even lower.
And nowadays it's like 94, 95. And, think about everybody's bullpen nowadays. Everybody's bullpen is 96 plus from each side. And, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I would bank my life that the average fastball velocity from a right-handed pitcher is probably in the 94, 95 range versus in 1990 was probably like 91. Greg Maddux is one of the greatest pitchers ever to play the game. He was averaging 89 to 91, somewhere in there. Bob Gibson back in the day was like considered an absolute freak, and he was averaging probably 94 to 96. It's like the game just evolves. And I mean, again, like drive line and all these places that are able to literally like maximize all of your repertoire, all of what you're able to do is
people are more athletic these days. There's a lot of factors. I mean, people know how to take care of their bodies and how to push themselves further. It's just a different environment now.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is going to do it for this episode. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, man. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Mike.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug all your work.
Yeah, that is at RunDMcD. And that's probably the best place to follow me right now. And I will have some things coming down the pipeline in the short term, hopefully, but nothing to report on as of right now.
And then, Mike, where can you be reached and what are you working on?
Reach me at Mike Warner, FWFB on Twitter. I do the Facts Flukes column for Baseball HQ once a week. Just did Nick Solak, Ryan Mountcastle, a few other guys, Christian Javier, some other guys this year. And then also the Daily Matchups column on Mondays. So, yeah.
And then you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason, FWFB. Email me the show, friends of fantasy benefits at gmail.com. I write pretty much fan graphs pretty close to daily over at Fantasy Alarm. You can hear me on this podcast, Sleeper in the Bus podcast, and the TGFBI podcast. And that will do it for us. For Dave, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland. Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.